So hello and welcome, I'm Frederick Dunn and this is The Way to Be. Today this is a quick tip. What's the quick tip going to be about? Well, it's about keeping mammals out of your beehives. In this case it's going to be a deer mice, but we also worry about house mice and little shrews and things like that getting into your hives in winter. And you'll notice that these landing boards that I'm showing you have entrance reducers on them, and they are specifically 3/8 of an inch in height. Why that dimension? It also just happens to be bee space, but when you look at this entrance reducer, it's been chewed and modified through the year, and that means a mouse could get in. In fact, what I was going to include in this video was the removal of nest material from this hive because it was sticking out through this opening, which showed me a mouse was setting up residence at night. Here it is on the ground. It looks largely composed of milkweed seed and things like that. We also see evidence here of chewing of bees and being spit out. That could be a skunk or something else as well, but there's a bunch of grass and other nest material here. But because it warmed up on us in November the 5th, and that meant that the bees were cleaning out the nest on their own, and that mouse has zero chance of getting into this hive. But temperatures are going to get colder, so we need to measure all of our entrances. So you know what, I was at a local hardware store and I found this 3/8 inch poplar square stock. What a great thing, because now it's just a gauge. You can go around or hand it off to your grandkids. It's also 9.5 millimeters, and you can test all your entrances to see if they are any taller than 3/8 of an inch, because if they are, there's a very good chance that shrews can get in, deer mice, or even house mice. We don't want them inside the hive because they defecate in there, they chew your beeswax, they eat pollen, they get anything they can that's outside of the cluster. But because we have unseasonably warm weather right now in the 60s, these bees are moving around and they're not clustered. So that's bad news for the small mammals, good news for us, we have a chance to fix it. So I'm just going to put a metal plate on the front of this hive. I happen to have some copper laying around, and I'm showing you another landing board because it has a reversible bottom. 3/8 of an inch on the top, 3/4 of an inch for the summer setting. But I recommend leaving your hive in the winter setup at 3/8 of an inch all year round. It works just fine. So here are the 3/8 inch shims. I put my copper plate on top of them. I used fender washers and number 8 wood screws to hold it onto the face of this slatted rack. So I screwed it right in there. Now we're good to go. You're probably going to want to know, did it work though? So for example, did a mouse show up? We need a witness to show what goes on after dark in this bee yard. This buff Orpington chicken does not make a very good witness. They're just annoying, they follow me around, they do not eat dead bees, but the witness is going to be this Arlo Pro 4 camera. Now these have a spotlight function on them as well. I'll have the spotlight turned off because I want the mouse not to know that we're looking at it. So here's our copper plate. We're going to set it up at night, and here comes the mouse. That's right on cue. A deer mouse shows up and can't get into the opening. So that was easy. It works. That was simple enough. Look at how the bees are moving around though. That mouse didn't have much of a chance to get through that entrance anyway, because the warm weather means the cluster is loose and the bees are guarding their entrance. So this mouse tried other landing boards too, but guess what? We're ahead of it. 3/8 of an inch on this entrance too. Can't get in. So that's good news. Notice that the bees are crawling around instead of flying. They cannot fly at night, but when they detect that something is in the vicinity that bothers them, they come out to guard the hive. But like that one jumped off into the darkness, it's just going to land on the ground. The other's going to crawl around and hope to jump onto whatever happens to be bothering the hive. But when the weather gets colder, the way it's supposed to be, now at the point of this video was November the 6th, if it got colder, then mice would be moving into the hives that have larger openings. But with the warm nights, the bees are still going to be able to defend themselves. But when the cold weather comes, look for grass, look for bits and pieces of detritus that's getting dragged into your hives. We don't want mammals living inside the hive with our bees. So I hope that this video is helpful to you, and I hope that you can look at your entrances, maybe get one of those little square stock pieces of wood that are 3/8 of an inch and just go around and use it as a gauge. It also is helpful as a gauge when you're making entrance reducers or you're cutting a slatted rack or something like that to accommodate your bees, but not mammals. Now you might be wondering, could something like a pygmy shrew get in with a 3/8 of an inch opening? And I can tell you that it can't, and here's why. The pygmy shrew skull is more than 3/8 of an inch, and they cannot deform or reshape their skull in order to get into the hive. And of course, look what's here on the landing board. This, of course, is the following day. There is a drone, which is a male honeybee, sitting there. It's being slowly starved out by its sisters. If, in fact, it was raised in this hive, drones, male bees, can show up at any hive at any time. This time of year, colonies are not preparing to reproduce, so they're not producing new queens. Therefore, drones are unnecessary because their sole purpose is to mate with virgin queens. Bad timing for this little drone. So they're getting rid of it. And even this bee hit the landing board, and it's getting taken on by TSA here. They're grooming and checking it. There's no bee that's going to enter this hive with a mite on it or any detritus or anything that doesn't belong. And if there's anything at all wrong with that worker, it's going to get rejected. They'll start by biting its feet, biting her wings, biting at her antennae until she flies away. So, not a lot of drift this time of year. Look how fuzzy that drone is. Oh, he's getting his wings nipped. See? They just don't care. They're just making sure that it gets the message that it's no longer welcome and that there are no free meals in this hive anymore. You also notice there's a funny cast of color on all of their wings, and that's because of that copper plate reflecting daylight back onto the bees, and it makes them all look kind of coppery. I didn't expect that. Kind of interesting. And of course, this drone, this bee decides to take a ride on it in case it's not getting the message, biting it here and there, just giving it every message that they can that it needs to move on, and it's the end of its time. So drones, common to see them dead around your bee yard, landing board areas. The undertaker bees try to fly away with them. Sometimes they don't get very far, but I'm pretty satisfied with the defensive level of the bees in this particular hive. They seem to be paying attention to every single bee that's making an entrance here. And of course, couldn't help but notice there was a bumblebee loafing around over here. I just took the opportunity to get you a nice close look up at it. You might be thinking, what do bumblebees do in the wintertime? Well, they start new colonies next year, but first they have to get through winter, and they do that by taking on a bunch of resources. They produce their own antifreeze, by the way, and then it's going to go and dig into a pile of leaves or some other detritus, some rotting log or decomposing wood in the woods, and hopefully, if it survives, it will come out again in spring and start a new colony too. I hope you found this helpful. Thanks a lot for watching. Another way to be quick tip.